Hello again. Today we're going to take a look at the Orton effect. So the Orton effect was created back in the film days, and it was done by a photographer by the name of Michael Orton. And what he used to do is take several exposures. He'd take his first exposure, nice and sharp, everything in focus, and then he'd take another exposure that was out of focus, an exposure that was overexposed. Some would be overexposed and out of focus, in focus, and then what he'd do is he'd lay all those negatives or slides together to create one image. Okay, so that's what we're going to recreate here in both Lightroom and Photoshop. I'm going to split this up into two parts. Part one is going to be in Lightroom and part two is going to be in Photoshop. So if you just want to skip to the Photoshop one, I'll put a timestamp in the timeline. And what we're going to do is we're going to create this effect and then we're going to save it as a preset. Keeping with my simple and effective, I'm going to show you the way that I do it. Okay, a little bit different to a way of a lot of other people might do it. Mine's a bit more traditional, as in we're going to create a sharp image and a blurry image and blur them together. Okay, we're not going to use luminance ranges and just select the brighter parts of the image. We're going to do it old school, okay, blurry image, sharp image, layer them together. It's going to give a very similar effect to the original image that was created by Michael. For this to work, start with an unedited image. It'll just make the flow a little bit easier to understand. Okay, so we're going to create our Orton effect straight up and then I'll show you how we can apply it afterwards. So the first thing we want to do is go up to our masking tool, and then we're going to select a brush. So with the brush selected, we're going to turn our size all the way up to 100 and we're going to turn our feathering down to 0. So that'll make it a nice hard large brush, and we're just going to paint over the image. Okay, so now what we've done, we've created a layer mask. Okay, and this is where we're going to apply our effect. Just a cool little tip, if we click on these three dots here, what we can do is we can actually rename it, and let's rename it Orton Effect. And press OK. So now whatever we do here, it's going to appear as the Orton Effect mask. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go down to our curves adjustment. So just down where it says curve, if we click on this little triangle here, it's going to drop down and show this little box. Okay, so we're going to create a very subtle S-curve. So just click your mouse on the top right hand corner and lift that up a little bit, and then bottom left hand corner, just click and drag, and we're going to bring that down a little bit. Okay, so we just want this fairly subtle. If we just toggle our eyeball on and off, as you can see, it's not doing a great deal, it's just adding a little bit of contrast to the image. Okay, so that's the first step. Second step, we're going to scroll down to where it says effects. Okay, and this is where it's really going to make a difference. Okay, so the way I like to do it is bring my texture down by -50. Okay, or you can just type in here -50. Okay, our clarity -50, and our dehaze -20. Okay, so that's roughly where you want it. And finally, we're just going to go down to detail and we're just going to reduce our sharpness by about 50 as well. Again, back to the original image, we've got a sharp image and a blurry image. This is our blurry part of it that we're doing now. Okay, so now if we just toggle our eyeball on and off, there's the original sharp and there's the blurry. Okay, so from here, what we can do is if we just go to our amount slider, if we take that all the way down, there's our sharp image, and then we can bring it up, and the more we bring it up, the more the effect takes place. Okay, so that's how easy it is to create an Orton effect in Lightroom. Okay, and I find I've had a bit of a trial and error with this, but I find this is probably the easiest and most effective way of doing it. There's lots of different ways of doing it. None of them are wrong ways of doing it. I just find that this is the easiest and most effective way. Okay, so it's giving us that nice dreamy look. Okay, so there's our before, there's our after. That's how we do it in Lightroom. Okay, so then from here what we want to do is we want to save that as a preset. So then we don't have to keep going through that process if we want to apply it to another image. So what we're going to do, over to our left hand side under presets, there's this little plus symbol. We're going to click on plus. We're going to create a preset. And again, we're going to call this preset Orton effect. Now, this is the important part. What we need to do is check none. Make sure that you've checked nothing, because we don't want to apply any other adjustments that we've done. We only want to do the Orton effect. Okay, so over here under masking, there's the Orton effect that we created. So we're just going to tick that box and then hit create. So now we've just created a preset over underneath our user presets called Orton effect. So as an example, if we take this image, I'm going to reset this image back to normal. Okay, so that's back to our original raw file. Now I can do any sort of adjustments that I want to this. Let's just lighten it up a little bit. Let's give it some texture and some clarity just to make it pop a bit more. And then once we've done our adjustments here, then we apply our Orton effect, and it's only applying that Orton effect on top of what we've adjusted. Okay, so that's the important part. Make sure you click none when you save it, and then just select the Orton effect. Otherwise, whatever adjustments you've done, it'll do all of that. And the beauty of this is, now that we've created that Orton effect preset, if we just go over to our masking tools again, there's our Orton effect. So if we click on that, there's everything that we've done. Okay, so you might find that now that you've done your adjustments, the Orton effect might be a bit too strong, so then you can just dial it back. Okay, so take it back or bring it up. Okay, and another thing he used to do was occasionally he would slightly overexpose his blurry image. So once we're on our layer mask, we can increase our exposure. Okay, so there's still a lot we can do to edit the image. So rather than just moving the effect up and down, so we might find that we move the effect up but it's still a bit too dark, so then we can just start to lift our exposure, lift our highlights, and just target the areas we want to target. Okay, so lots of things that we can do once we've got that basic mask created. Okay, so that's the beauty of a preset. What we can do is we can adjust our images. So here's another, let's use this one as an example. I've already done a heap of presets. I've already done a heap of adjustments to this one. I've done a few masks. Okay, and now if I want to apply the Orton effect, I just simply click Orton effect. Okay, it's leaving everything I've done before. If I click on my mask panel, I can see all these masks that I've done, and now I've also got this mask called Orton effect. And again, I can just sort of tone that down as required. Okay, or boost it as required. Okay, so that's it for Lightroom. Now we're going to move over into Photoshop and do a very similar thing. I think the Photoshop version is better. I prefer the Photoshop version, but the Lightroom one, it's pretty close. It's almost the same. It's almost as good. Alright, so now off to the Photoshop version. Okay, so now that we're in Photoshop, we're just going to open a couple of images. I'll open a few of the same ones. We'll do these three. Okay, now the beauty of Photoshop and Lightroom is they all use Adobe Camera Raw. So whenever you open a RAW file in Photoshop, you'll see this screen. Okay, now I've already done a few little adjustments to it, but the good thing with this is all those presets that we created in Lightroom, if we go up to our top right hand corner and this little icon here, they're our presets. And as we can see, there's our presets that we created in Lightroom. So that Orton effect that we just did in Lightroom is now here in Photoshop as well. Okay, and if we click on that, then we can go to our masking tool. So very similar, basically identical to Lightroom. If we click on the Orton effect, okay, we can then start to play around with our Orton effect in here. Okay, so that's not how we're going to do it, because there is a better way of doing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that mask, and what we're going to do is just bring our images into Photoshop. So I've just given them a quick edit, got them roughly where I want them. So I'm just going to select them and hit open, and then we're going to apply the Orton effect in Photoshop, and then we're going to save it as an action. Okay, so what that basically means is everything we do here, we're going to record, so then we don't have to keep doing it in the future. We can just press the play button and Photoshop will apply the Orton effect to our image. So we'll start with the image that we did in Lightroom. And the first thing we need to do, I'll run through this a few times, but just a quick rundown. What we're going to do is we're going to select our background. We're going to press Ctrl and J on the keyboard. That's going to create a copy. And what we're going to do is, with that top layer selected, we're going to go up to Filter, we're going to select Blur, and we're going to select Gaussian Blur. Okay, once we select that, now this is where a little bit of experimenting can come in handy, but as a general rule, whatever your radius is should be around about the amount of megapixels of your camera. Okay, so if you've got a 50 megapixel camera, go with a radius of 50. In this case, my camera is around about that 22 megapixels. So I'm going to pick 22 and then just press OK. From there, we're going to come down to our blending modes. So just above that top layer, and we're going to select Screen. Okay, select Screen. It's going to make everything nice and bright. So already we're starting to see it take effect. But then the final step, we're going to go up to Image and select Apply Image, and by default this is what you should have. Okay, so just check that your layer is merged, check everything out here is the same, but this is the default setting, and then just press OK. And that's how simple it is to create the Orton effect in Photoshop. So if I hide that, there's our original image and there's our Orton effect. Okay, so again, similar to Lightroom, what we can do now is we can turn down the opacity. Okay, so we can have opacity down to 0, and then we can just dial it up to get the desired effect we like. Okay, the beauty with Photoshop is we can create all sorts of masks and layers and adjustments and do a lot more than we can in Lightroom. But I find this is just simple and effective. Okay, you don't need to do too much apart from change your blending, change the opacity. The other beauty here is we have layer masks, so if we only want to affect certain areas, we can just create a layer mask, choose a black brush, and if we don't want it to affect the rocks, we can just black out the areas that we don't want it to affect, so then it's only affecting what we want it to affect. Okay, so simple and very effective Photoshop, and it just gives a nicer result. Lightroom is probably more traditional, where it's blurring the actual image, where Photoshop is, the screen mode just, it makes it look nicer. Basically, that's the best way I can put it. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how to actually save that as an action and create another preset, so to speak. Okay, so let's do it on this image. Okay, so to do it in Photoshop, we have this little play button up here. Okay, and that's our action. So if we click on that, you'll see all these default actions. Now what we don't want to use these defaults, we want to create our own. So what I'm going to do is select this folder here, and it's going to come up with a new set, and we're going to call this My Actions. And press OK. So now we're going to create our own actions. Okay, the default ones, look, to be honest, I've never tried them, but we're going to create our own action, so then we can apply the Orton effect whenever we like. Okay, so now that we've created a folder, what we're going to do is hit the plus symbol, and that's going to create our new action. So if we press plus, we're going to call this one Orton effect, and we're going to hit record. So now you'll see this little red circle appear. That means we're recording. Okay, so it's only going to record what we input. So as soon as we do something, it's going to remember it and record it, and then I'll show you how it works. Okay, so we'll go through exactly what we did before. So the first thing we're going to do is press Ctrl and J to make a copy, and as you can see, it's a layer via copy. Then we're going to go up to Filter and Blur, Gaussian Blur. We're still at our radius, so radius whatever your megapixels are, press OK. We're going to change our blending type to screen, and then we're going to go up to image, apply image, OK. Okay, so that's it. That's created our Orton effect. Okay, and then all we need to do is press stop. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so let's just, as an example, let's close this down. Let's close down this image altogether. Okay, now that we've created that action, if we go back up to this action panel, okay, and we should see here Orton effect. And all I'm going to do is click on Orton effect and press play. And there it is. It's done. It's applied our Orton effect. Okay, so as you can see, we've got our screen type, our blending type to screen. Okay, there's our original image, and there's our Orton effect over the top of it. Okay, and then once again, we can just change our opacity, move it up, move it down, do adjustments. We can do whatever we want now that we're in Photoshop. Okay, that's it. That is how easy it is to create the Orton effect in Photoshop, and very effectively. Okay, and that's the key here, simple and effective. Okay, lots of other things we can do, but that's a good starting point. That's a good starting point to get you creating an Orton effect, saving it, so then whenever we bring in an image, so let's just close that down, we don't need to save that. Let's just bring in this image as an example. Just apply a quick preset to it, open that up into Photoshop, and then just remembering that our actions are this little play symbol, so we click on that, select our Orton effect, and then press play, and it applies the Orton effect, as simple as that. Okay, and then we can adjust it and do whatever we like. Alright, so that's it for this video. Hopefully it was nice and simple. So if you have any questions, please ask questions. If there's anything you'd like to see, put it in the comments. I'll try and do as much as I can, and just keeping things simple and effective. That's what I'm here for. I don't like working with multiple layers and having a messy Photoshop or Lightroom. Just keep things simple. Don't like to edit the images too much, so to speak, but just enhancing them. Okay, getting the most out of our raw files that we possibly can. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like if you did like it. Please subscribe. There's going to be a lot more videos coming up. Got some live streams in the plans. I'm planning to do a live stream shortly. So thank you again, and I'll see you soon.